The moment you lose control of your face, you lose control of everything else. That glance too wide, too soft, too quick betrays you faster than any word could. There's a moment, every day, when the world tests whether you're real or a story. When someone pries your silence to see if it's empty or a weapon. The moments you show too much anger, hurt, desperation, they mark you. Not like a scar, but a target. You think showing emotion is strength, but sometimes it is just a flag inviting them to pull harder. You've been there. The sting of regret after a slip, the cold sinking in when they see you bleed, and then the echo of silence afterward, the awkward distance, the shift in their eyes. They didn't respect you less because you felt something. They respected you less because you revealed it to them. What if the greatest power was in absence? Not absence of feeling, but absence of display. Not numbness, but precision. To understand when your face must be a mask and your silence a shield. Because every emotional leak is a crack in your armor, one they will exploit until you break. You think they see your vulnerability as human. They don't. They see it as leverage. And once they find leverage, the game is over before you even notice you were playing. This isn't about becoming cold or void. It's about becoming unshakable. About mastering the invisible code where emotions aren't worn like medals or wounds, but kept locked, cataloged, and deployed only when the calculus is in your favor. You've already felt the chaos chasing approval, grappling with chaos, begging for scraps of respect. Now you're at the edge. You want to see the real rule. The rule they don't teach because it dismantles every cliché about honesty and openness. Because the truth is brutal. The world doesn't reward your tears. It punishes your cracks. It's time to stop apologizing for your silence. Time to stop explaining what you don't owe. Time to stop showing your hand. Don't reach for comfort. Don't listen for hope. Listen to this and feel the cold edge of clarity. Because the moments you don't show emotion, the moments you keep still, unreadable, a fortress they will be, the moments you finally own yourself. If you've ever felt exposed, disrespected, or overlooked, linger here. Let it settle. If you've ever been called cold, maybe it's because you were finally strong enough to be that way. There is a silence that screams louder than words. The kind that happens when you stop reacting not because you don't care, but because you know their game better than they know their own reflection. When they push, expecting you to crack, expecting a spark, a tremble, a weakness, they find a stillness so deep it unsettles them more than any outburst ever could. This is the first line they don't teach you. Emotion is power, only when it's weaponized. Otherwise, it is surrender. You've been conditioned to believe that feeling something means showing it. But look closer, what did it get you? The pity, the judgments, the dismissal? They didn't want your vulnerability. They wanted control. Every tear, every plea, every "I'm sorry" that you thought built bridges only built cages. Because when you show too much, they don't see you. They see an opportunity. And when you're an opportunity, you're a target. Picture the last time someone called you too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too reactive. It wasn't just an insult. It was a verdict. It meant you handed them the keys to your reactions and gave them permission to pull every string. They didn't apologize because they felt guilt. They apologized because you didn't react, and that startled them. That silence cracked their certainty. The truth no one wants to admit. Your emotions are yours to feel, never theirs to see. To expose them is to give away your last piece of sovereignty. This isn't about becoming a statue. It's about becoming a fortress. The difference is subtle but deadly. A fortress feels. It knows. It waits. But it never gives itself away. You've sat across from the mirror, wondering why your honesty brought nothing but distance. Because honesty isn't an invitation to display your wounds, it's a declaration of your boundaries. And boundaries are respected only when enforced without drama, without flinching. When they see you steady, unmoved, you stop being a person to manipulate. You become an equation they can't solve. This is the second line they don't teach you. To never let them see the storm inside before you've decided to let it out. because storms are weapons, and weapons are kept hidden until the moment they devastate. If you announce your storm, you've already lost. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be respected. And respect doesn't come from explanations or apologies. It comes from control. Control of your face, your voice, your reactions. The moments you keep that control are the moments you carve your name into the air around you. They feel it, even if they can't see it. Every emotional display is a code they read to decode your limits, your fears, your weaknesses. You break that code when your face becomes unreadable, when your silence is thicker than any scream, when the only thing they can guess is how deep your calm really runs. They will watch you like a puzzle with missing pieces, desperate for the shape of your fracture. And when they don't find it, confusion turns to suspicion. They called you cold not because you stopped feeling, but because you stopped reacting. They feared losing the script where you played the predictable victim, the desperate defender, the pleading friend. When you withdraw your emotional currency, the market crashes. The value you never realized you had suddenly skyrockets in silence. But silence isn't absence, it's precision. It's a message sharper than any outburst. I am not your story to rewrite. When they see your unreadable face, the game shifts. Power no longer flows to the loudest or the most exposed. It flows to the stillest. You don't have to prove you're valuable. Value is what you become when you stop trying to prove anything. You've spent years handing your power away in the form of tears, explanations, and justifications. Now imagine the world without those chains, where your absence of reaction is the loudest statement in the room. Because when you stop defending yourself, they start doubting themselves. And that doubt is the leverage you never had before. Look back on every situation where you regret showing too much. The betrayal, the disrespect, the manipulations that followed. They didn't fall on you because you were weak. They fell on you because you gave them the opening. The moment you tighten your expression, close your mouth, and stop explaining, you stop being the target and start being the threat. There is a brutal clarity in understanding this. Emotions aren't a currency you trade with others, they're your territory. And the moment you let them trespass, you become a victim of their designs. When you don't show emotion, you erase the map they use to find your vulnerabilities. They will test you, push your limits, demand a crack in your armor. But each refusal to react is a declaration that you are not theirs to break. They will call you cold, distant, unreachable, because in their world, only the exposed can be controlled. You don't owe them access to your storm. You don't owe them your face. The power is in the refusal. The power is in the stillness. In the absence of noise, in the space between words, in the calm that unnerves. There are moments when silence is the loudest insult you can deliver, not because you want to hurt them, but because you want to be untouched by their attempt. When they throw accusations, demands, or venom, and you don't even blink, you become a mirror reflecting back their desperation. They expect a reaction, a crack, a surrender. They don't get it. Instead, they get indifference dressed as control, an unreadable gaze that shrugs off their weight. This is the third truth they don't want you to see. Showing emotion is never about being understood. It's about handing them the keys to your mind. When you withdraw those keys, they are lost. You are no longer theirs to navigate or manipulate. You become a void they can't fill, a question without an answer, and that emptiness is terrifying. You've seen how chaos feeds on vulnerability, how emotional outbursts ignite wars that never end. You know the cost of being open in a world that trades in leverage and silence. So you learn to measure your reactions like a sniper measures their shot, cold, calculated, decisive, because every emotion you show is a signal flare inviting battle. You don't owe your explanation. You don't owe your apology. You don't owe the crack in your voice or the tremble in your hands. When you keep your face still, your voice steady, your body unreadable, you hold the ultimate power, the power of uncertainty. They can't predict you. They can't exploit you. You might think this makes you less human. It doesn't. It makes you human on your own terms. The ones who label you cold, do so because they want to pull you back into their chaos. But the coldness they fear is the calm you crave, a calm that means you have no need for their approval or their approval-seeking games. Every emotion you hide is a stone in the fortress of your sovereignty. Every refusal to engage their bait is a brick in the wall of your unbreakable self. And with each stone laid, they retreat. They look for easier prey. They whisper about you in frustration because you stopped being a game and became a boundary. And boundaries are not negotiated with tears or tantrums. They are enforced with the absence of reaction, with the stillness that says, "Try, I dare you." There's a particular moment when they realize you've stopped being their mirror, when they glance your way, looking for the reflection of their own chaos in your eyes, and find only stillness. Not indifference, not numbness, but a wall so solid it disrupts their rhythm. That moment unravels them, because they built their power on the assumption that you'd move when they moved, that your emotional weather would always match theirs. When you break that pattern, the ground beneath their control crumbles. They'll try again, harder, sharper, more insistent, because desperation breeds persistence. But every attempt you don't meet with a crack, every bait you don't bite, widens the gulf between who you were and who you are becoming. You don't owe them the comfort of your face, the explanation of your silence, or the warmth of your reaction. They want those things because they want to own you, and you don't belong to anyone. You've been conditioned to believe that honesty means vulnerability. But there is another honesty, one that's darker, colder, truer. The honesty of restraint, the honesty of silence that burns deeper than words. It's the language of power spoken without noise, a refusal to be a character in their story. You don't have to justify your coldness, because it's not coldness, it's self-possession. It's knowing that the currency of your emotions is too precious to waste on those who trade in manipulation. When they call you unreadable, thank them. Because in their eyes, that means you have stopped being a puzzle they can solve. Look back. The betrayals, the disrespect, the endless chase for approval, each was an invitation you once accepted. Now you withdraw the invitation. You become the question they can't answer and the silence they can't break. You are no longer the one who reacts. You are the one who waits, watches, and lets the world unfold around you while you remain untouched. This is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength, to carry your storm within, invisible, invincible. If this stirs something inside you, don't reach for comfort, reach for clarity. Subscribe if the silence here speaks louder than the noise you've been drowning in. Comment if you recognize the weight of holding back when the world demands you break. This is only the beginning. They watch your face for cracks, like a vulture circling a dying animal. But you've learned to be still not because you feel nothing, but because you refuse to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Their power grows in the space you leave, empty your anger, your hurt, your frustration, all the things they hope to see so they can pull, prod, and tear. When you keep your face a mask, unreadable and silent, you deny them that power. You don't owe anyone your pain. You don't owe explanations for your silence. The moment you begin justifying what you feel, you become a hostage to their judgment. They don't want your truth. They want your weakness. Because weakness is control. Weakness is a leash. You've been through the slow grind of emotional warfare, where apologies are weapons disguised as peace, where explanations are traps disguised as honesty. You know the pattern, and yet, every time you showed emotion, you felt the weight of their leverage settle heavier on your shoulders. Because they didn't apologize to heal, they apologized to bind you to the cycle. You break that cycle when you stop showing up the way they expect, when you stop filling the script written for you by their convenience and control. Your silence becomes a language louder than any scream, a refusal sharper than any insult. There is a brutal elegance in being unreadable, an elegance born not from detachment, but from discipline. The discipline to own your face, to own your voice, to own the moments when others expect you to unravel. The elegance of knowing your value isn't measured by how much you give away, but by how much you hold inside untouched, unshakable, unbreakable. When they call you cold, They are naming the fear they feel, losing the ability to predict you. They call you distant because you are no longer within reach. And that distance isn't absence, it's your fortress. You are no longer the echo of their chaos. You are the silence they can't fill. You are the calm before the storm they cannot weather. They want you exposed, raw, begging for approval or mercy. Because exposed, raw, and begging, you're a chess piece they can move at will. But what happens when you fold your hands, lower your eyes, and meet their storm with quiet that swallows their noise? That quiet is a declaration. It says you are not available, not today, not ever to be dissected, debated, or dismantled. It says you are no longer a player in their emotional game, but the board itself, unshakable and unreadable. You remember every time you tried to explain your feelings and were met with confusion or scorn. Every time your vulnerability was met with indifference or exploitation. You don't forget, because you are wired to survive. And survival means learning when to speak and when to vanish behind a wall of silence that no one can breach. There's no comfort in this silence, no warmth or softness, only cold clarity. It demands everything from you and gives nothing back, but it's the only armor that cannot be pierced by those who hunger for your cracks. You learn that showing emotion in certain moments is a strategic surrender disguised as honesty. Not all moments deserve to know your fire. Some moments are traps set by those who feed on chaos. To survive, you must learn which flames to ignite and which to smother in cold reserve. The real power is not in the storm you carry, but in the calm you project. They will test you with words sharp as knives and silences colder than ice. They will try to catch you off guard, to see what breaks first, your composure or their patience. But every second you remain still, every glance you withhold, every sigh you swallow, you rewrite the rules. You're not broken because you don't give them what they want. You're whole because you protect what's yours, the sanctity of your face, your voice, your space. And in that protection, you become something few ever are, untouchable. If you feel the weight of this truth, if it unsettles the core of who you've been, know this is not a wound. It is a weapon forged in silence and restraint. Subscribe if you're ready to carry that weapon without apology. Comment if the world has ever demanded too much from your soul and you're done surrendering. There will be moments when your silence becomes louder than any explanation, when your stillness fills the room with a tension so thick it unsettles the strongest. They will stare, waiting for a crack, a sign, a hint of emotion to pull apart. But there is nothing but the cold, unyielding surface you've crafted. That surface isn't made of ice or absence, it's made of steel-willed choice. This is not detachment born of numbness, but of fierce, deliberate restraint. The kind of restraint that says, I am not here for your consumption. They want your anger so they can label you volatile, your pain so they can dismiss you as fragile, your tears so they can mark you weak. But you deny them all. In the arena of human chaos, emotion is currency, and you've decided to bankrupt the market. By not spending what they demand, you starve their leverage. You become the void where their control unravels. Think back to every apology you gave that felt like a chain rather than freedom. Every time you explained yourself only to be misunderstood or worse, weaponized. The truth you avoided is now clear. Showing emotion in the wrong moment isn't vulnerability, it's surrender. When you master the art of unreadability, you reclaim the power they stole with your openness. Your face, your voice, your body become a fortress no one can scale. They may call you cold because they can't handle the fact that you no longer belong to their script. This is the final rule they don't teach. To never show emotion when your reaction gives them their power back. When your silence unsettles, when your stillness becomes the storm, you stop being prey and start being the predator. You are not here to soothe anyone's ego. You are here to protect your own sovereignty. Your face is not a map for others to read. It is a wall they cannot breach. If this truth slices through the noise you've lived with, don't look for comfort. Look for the sharp edge of your own presence. Subscribe to own that presence. Comment if you're done being anyone's emotional afterthought.